This is a tutorial session, so although I have something on the screen, it's only as a sort of a background. Most of the time, I would like it to be a more interactive session. So maybe I will pose some questions, and it would be good if people can sort of respond to those questions. So just to introduce myself, my name is Bhalchandra Joshi, and I work here at National Center for Radio Astrophysics. And my primary research interest is radio astronomy instrumentation and radio pulsar astronomy. Okay, so I guess you have had previous lectures on radio astronomy techniques, on astronomy in general and radio astronomy in particular. But one of the things which would be sort of nice to fix in our minds is how do we actually locate astronomical object in the sky. So I would start by asking this question. Maybe somebody can sort of answer. How do you identify and locate a star or a galaxy or a nebula or any of the astronomical objects that we want to study in the sky? Can anyone answer?
In case you are measuring it in a particular frequency band, you'll expect like around that star, you'll expect a Gaussian peak or something like that, which tells you that there's an object.
Yeah, no, you're right. What I wanted to see, for example, if you want to say that, if you want to specify where I am located, you will say I'm located in Pune, which is one way of locating me. But then you don't know where Pune is, so you will say it is in India. Okay, and that's another way of locating it. But again, you don't know where India is, so then you would sort of give some kind of a latitude or longitude for the city. Okay. Yeah, that sort of fixes it. So I meant in that sense. How do you locate a star in the sky?
Yeah, you have
array and deck.
Array and deck. What is array? What is the full form of array and what is the full form of deck?
Right ascension and declination.
So how do you measure the right ascension and declination? Okay. So these are like two coordinates, right? So like latitude and longitude on the surface of the earth, right ascension and declinations are also two coordinates. Can anyone name other coordinates which you come across in science, physics, things which you come across? Yeah.
Altitude, azimuth, depends which coordinate system we are looking at.
Okay. So how do you define the altitude, for example? So if I say that a star is at an altitude of 40 degrees, what do I mean?
It has an elevation angle from the horizon, 40 degrees.
From the reference circle.
Right. So for any coordinate system, you need a reference plane. Okay. So the most simple coordinate system which all of you have come across even in school in 10th and 12th standards is the Euclidean coordinate system, the XYZ coordinate system. Okay. So how do you define X coordinate? You define it with respect to a plane, which is the YZ plane. It's basically the distance from the YZ plane. So that's what is actually the way you define a coordinate system. Okay. So this is your normal XYZ system. Okay. So what is the Z coordinate? Z coordinate is just, if you see the place where my cursor is, Z coordinate is just the distance from the XY plane. So the XY plane is the reference, and the distance from the reference is the actual coordinate. So that is how the Cartesian coordinate system is defined, which all of you are very well familiar with. Okay. So now somebody mentioned altitude azimuth, and I asked, how do you define altitude azimuth? So we have already got one definition. So what is the reference plane for altitude?
The horizon plane.
Right. And
local horizon.
Horizon.
No. Yeah. So whoever said local horizon is more closer to the. So how do you define horizon, right? So is the horizon same in Srinagar, same in Tirunelveli, and same in Pune?
No, different.
Yeah,
So
that's why altitude depends on location.
Correct.
The latitude of the observer.
Right. So that's an important point to keep in mind. What about the other one, the azimuth?
Azimuth north reference frame.
Now, as I said, for any coordinate system, you have to define a plane. Okay. Now, horizon is a plane. It's the, if you extend your line of sight in all directions, that whole plane is the horizon plane. So you need a similar plane for azimuth. So you're right. North has something to do with it, but
The meridian, North Pole, South Pole, and but if we connect a line, so zenith, North Pole,
right.
true north.
Correct. So this alt azimuth system is called as horizon system, and you are correct. So zenith is, so if you, let's say this is a representation of the place you are in. So you are the observer at the center of the sphere. Okay. This big plane is your horizon plane, which is the shaded plane. So any angle from the horizon plane along any great circle in this sphere is called the altitude, which somebody already defined. Okay. Now you need to define the other plane. So you need to define a plane, you would need some points. One direction is not sufficient. So somebody said north, so fine. So north is one point where my cursor is pointing. You need another point to define the plane. Okay. So, and you need that point to be unique. So zenith is a point which is right above your head, and that point is then sort of called zenith, and a plane which contains both zenith and north is your reference plane for azimuth. So any angle from this would be your azimuth coordinate, and you go from north to east direction. Okay, so again you have to define a direction, right? What is positive and what is negative. So all positive angles will be towards the east. So this is typically the alt azimuth coordinate system which we are discussing. Okay. Now this coordinate system has some problems. Can anyone tell me what problems this coordinate system will suffer?
Depends on location.
Depends on the location
Time.
of the observer.
Time also.
Yeah. Okay, that is true. How does it depend on time?
Because of Earth's rotation, our horizon plane is also changing.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
the coordinates of
Correct.
a particular star would change.
Fine. So if there are 3 astronomers and one of the astronomers has discovered a star and he wants to tell the other 2 astronomers who are not in the same geographical location, say let's say the astronomer who's discovered a star is me in Pune, and I want to tell somebody in Australia and tell somebody in US. Okay. So if I give alt azimuth of the star, they will not be able to locate it, right? Because the altitude keeps changing. The stars rises and sets because of the Earth rotation, as somebody correctly pointed out. And so does the azimuth. It also keeps changing as the star rises and sets. So this is the basic deficiency of this coordinate system. And you don't directly use this system. So then how do you take care of this?
With area and deck coordinates.
Okay, so what is the difference in area and deck versus this? Why is area and deck not time and location dependent?
Because we consider the celestial sphere there, and that's kind of a constant.
Meaning the reference circle is the equatorial plane, celestial equator.
And equinox.
Okay, so now we have come to that celestial system. This is also called as equatorial coordinate system, as somebody was pointing it out. Okay, so how do you form this coordinate system? So your Earth is somewhere in the center where my cursor is. Okay, so how do you form this coordinate system? So again, you have to define 2 reference planes, and one reference plane somebody defined, but the other plane is yet not defined. Okay,
That is elliptic.
Path of the sun,
uh-huh.
and starting from the vernal equinox.
Path of the sun.
Yeah.
No. See, you have to define. See, when we started, I said that the coordinate systems are defined by a reference plane. So if you want to define your right ascension and declination, you have to first define the planes with respect to which you are going to measure them. So which are the planes?
The first plane is directly parallel to the Earth's equator,
Right.
and we then take the elliptic, which is the path of the sun. So it
No,
intersects.
go one by one. Go one by one. So you are right that the first reference plane is the plane if you extend the Earth's equatorial plane, okay, and take it all the way to an imaginary sphere around the Earth, which is known as celestial sphere. This plane is the reference plane for which coordinate?
This is for declination.
Declination. So all the angles above this reference plane, right up to North Pole, are plus declination, and all the angles below this plane are minus declination. Okay, so you define declination. Now let's come to the other one, which is the right ascension. So what is the reference plane for right ascension?
North celestial pole and vernal equinox connected by
a great circle, right? Correct. So if you take the North celestial pole, South celestial pole, and vernal. So what is vernal equinox?
where the celestial equator and Earth, celestial equator and the path of the sun intersect.
Correct. Ecliptic. Path of the sun is called ecliptic.
Yeah.
So there is a plane, it defines a plane. So there is an ecliptic plane and there is an equatorial plane. Where they intersect is an equinox. Okay, but there are two equinoxes. So which one is vernal equinox? Well, this does not uniquely define it.
The March equinox.
Yeah.
March equinox. Okay. So March equinox. Now, if you have a source which has a right ascension of 0, okay, where will you see it on the sky on, say, March equinox? When is the March equinox, by the way? Can somebody tell?
21st, 22nd March.
21st March.
Okay, so on 21st of March, where will be the 0 right ascension star? So if a
Just
star has,
rising above east sky.
It would be at 0 RA 0 deck.
it will be at 0 RA 0 deck. No, but how do you define 0 RA 0 deck? That is okay. Before we come to that, the reason why we went to this equatorial coordinate system was that we didn't want it to be time and place dependent. So why is this not time and place dependent? And whether this statement is strictly true. So can anyone hazard a guess?
It would be true for an observer on the, like strictly speaking, it would be true for an observer on Earth only. Like you're observing.
Yeah, no, we are still talking of everybody on the Earth. We have not gone
Then
to extrasolar planets, so we are still talking about everything on the Earth. So, but why is it time and place independent for an observer on the Earth?
Sir, probably some reference is defined, like reference frame is defined through which we are going to measure the value.
No, that was done for the altitude system also, right? You had two reference planes and you sort of measured the coordinates with respect to that.
I guess another requirement is that this time that we're talking about March 21 and all, that should be like a generalized time. It should be true, like for example GPS time or something like that. If it's like the observer's local time, then that won't work.
Yeah, some part of what you said is correct, but that's not the reason.
So actually, I think it's like when the sun on the
Dependent of
21st
Earth's
22nd
rotation
March
and revolution.
comes actually intersects with the east-west plane. That's where we call the vernal equinox, and that's constant for all over the globe actually, whatever we say. So because 21st the time is the constant,
Right.
21st to
No,
22nd.
so one thing which you said is correct, that the vernal equinox is a uniquely defined point, and it is the same for everybody. It is the same in Kolkata, it is the same in Bhopal, it is the same in Pune, it is the same in New York, it is the same in London. Okay. So it does not depend on where you are, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about the equatorial plane? Does it depend on where you are?
No, sir, it does not depend, na, because
Correct.
it's a perpendicular to north south. So
Correct. So neither of these two planes, that is the reference plane for right ascension and the reference plane for declination, are dependent on where you are located on the earth, right? So it is independent of the location of the observer, which was not the case for the horizon system. In horizon system, the planes depended on where you are. The same is true about time dependence. It does not matter. The celestial equator will remain where it is. As the earth is rotating, it's not going to change the celestial equator. It's neither going to change the first point of Aries, right? Because both these planes have been defined in a time independent way. So that is why when you use a equatorial coordinate system or right ascension or declination, you uniquely define the position of the star. So now in Pune, if I have discovered a star and I want to communicate it to my colleague in Australia or in New York, okay, or say in West Virginia, it would be very easy for me to do because I'll just give right ascension and declination, which is place and time independent, and my colleagues will understand uniquely where the star is. They will look at the star and say, yeah, correct, you have discovered a new thing, right? So it's very important to understand these coordinate systems, okay? But radio telescopes, we are in a radio astronomy winter school, so I will now sort of relate whatever we have learned till now to the radio telescopes. So radio telescopes are very large entities. What are the typical sizes of radio telescope? Can somebody tell us?
Tens or hundreds of meters in diameter.
Correct. And a typical optical telescope like the one which you might have used to look at the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter 10 days back. What is the size of that optical telescope?
A few inches.
Yeah, few inches. So unlike optical,
1.5 to 2 inches.
in fact, the largest optical telescopes are in meters. Okay, they are not very large. Whereas typical radio telescopes are in tens of meters. Okay, so radio telescopes are very large structures. Does anyone know how big is GMRT, Giant Meter Wave Radio Telescope?
45 meters.
Right. So it's 45 meters. Good. I'm happy to hear that at least somebody knows how big is GMRT. So it's, as you can see, a typical radio telescope is very large compared to optical telescopes. So you cannot sort of use the equatorial coordinate system directly. You mount the radio telescope in what is known as altitude azimuth mount or in the horizon system. Okay. So the coordinates which a radio telescope follows to point to any direction in the sky are horizon coordinates. Okay. Now, stars are specified in equatorial coordinates, but to look at them, you need to go to the horizon coordinate systems. Okay. So how do you sort of resolve this dilemma? Any guesses?
Coordinate transformation.
Coordinate transformation. Okay, good. So, but before maybe I can directly go to that. So this is the typical coordinate transformation, which is there. Okay. And that also makes it clear that the horizon system is time and place dependent. Okay. So if you look at that, on the left-hand side, you have the altitude and the azimuth, okay, or sine and cosine of altitude and azimuth. On the right-hand side, you have the declination and a quantity called hour angle, which is related to right ascension. We will come to what is hour angle. You can for the time being assume that hour angle is a proxy for right ascension. Okay. So the declination and right ascension is on the right hand side, but you see that these things are multiplied by latitude as well as in the hour angle there is a time dependence. Okay. So the altitude azimuth automatically, as a result of these expressions, you can directly see that the altitude azimuth is both place as well as time dependent. Place dependent because latitude has entered here, and time dependent because hour angle is a function of time. Okay. So by definition, these two coordinates will be place and time dependent. And you use the place and time independent coordinate system, the equatorial system, on the right hand side to do this kind of a conversion. And then you position your telescope in altitude and azimuth, and that is how you can uniquely locate that. Okay. So I hope this is all clear to everybody. Is that, or maybe I'll ask that a little later. But in this, we also need to sort of learn a little bit about astronomical time. Okay. So so let's come back here. So the time as we in your watches. Okay. So right now it's about 2:30. So what is this time? When you say that it is 2:30 in the afternoon, what do you mean by that? Indian Standard Time or Greenwich Mean Time? What kind of time is this?
IST.
Indian Standard Time.
It's a IST, but how do you measure this time?
Based on the motion of sun, solar time.
Okay. So one day is, how do you define a day?
From fixed time to back to that fixed time, 24-hour cycle.
Right. So what is that fixed time? Okay.
Actually, it is solar day, so the time for which the sun just go rounds back and comes to that celestial point again.
Right. You need a unique point. I agree that it is, since our time is dependent on the rotation of the Earth, and the rotation of the Earth is 24 hours. So so that's how the sun would come to the same place there. But which point of the day you measure the time?
Overhead, when the sun is overhead.
Right. When the sun is crossing a circle known as your meridian circle. Okay. Which is, so if you look at this, if you connect south, north, and the top of your head, that circle is called as meridional circle. Or if you look at this, this is even better. So north, zenith, and south, this is called the meridian circle. Okay. We know that all stars, including sun, they rise in east and then they set in west. So there will be a point of time when it will cross this south, zenith, north circle or the meridian circle. That crossing of the meridian circle is known as transit. So the jargon for that is that the star is transiting or the sun is transiting. Okay. So when does the sun transit the meridian circle?
Noon.
So our clocks are set to measurement of time in which a day is defined as time elapsed from one noon to another noon. That is the strict definition of the day. Okay. And then you divide it by 24 times, that becomes 24 hours, and then divided by 60 times, that becomes 1 minute, divided by 60 again, and that becomes 1 second. Okay. So that is how our civil time is defined. But this has a problem for astronomy. Can somebody tell me what why this time is not useful for astronomy?
Sidereal time is there.
What is sidereal time? Correct.
Another extra angle that has been covered by Earth due to revolution around the sun.
Right. Okay. So just to look at that, if we look at this, so what is happening is the sun is not stationary in the sky, right? And that all of you must have noticed that in summers, the sun is almost overhead at noon. But right now, around December, where do you see the sun? Do you see the sun overhead or you see it somewhere else?
It's shifted southwards.
Somewhere else.
Much southwards.
Yeah, it's shifted southwards. So why has it shifted southwards?
Because of the revolution of the Earth around it. So we're in the northern hemisphere of the Earth, so like now it's facing away from the sun, like tilted backwards a little. So that's why it's shifted a little southwards from Earth.
Basically because of the tilt of the Earth's axis with respect to a line perpendicular to the ecliptic, okay, or the path of the sun. Okay. So there is a 23.5 degree tilt between the two. That is the main reason. But what does it do to the coordinate of the sun? See, like every star, sun should also have a right ascension and declination, right? So what is the declination of the sun as of today, roughly, approximately?
About minus 22 degrees south, because we had 1 week ago the winter equinox, winter solstice.
Right. So at winter solstice, the sun is the most southernmost. And so it is, if you look at my cursor here, it is somewhere here. Okay. So it is 23.5 degrees south of that. Okay. In the summer solstice, what would be the declination of the sun?
Positive 23.
Right. And during the equinox, what is the declination of the sun?
0, 0.
0, 0. So you see that unlike stars, the declination of the sun changes throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
You agree with me or not?
Yes, it changes.
Actually, the declination of not only the sun changes, but the planets also change. And in fact, the declination of Saturn and Jupiter was almost the same, except for a 0.1 degree separation between them. It was almost the same on the winter solstice on December 21st. I don't know. Did you guys watch the conjunction on 21st of December?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that's the time when Saturn and Jupiter had exactly the same declination and the same right ascension. Okay. So planets, the solar system bodies, the right ascension and declination changes. That also tells you that the right ascension declination system is not based on solar system bodies. It is based on faraway stars, right? Because if it was based on solar system bodies, why would the coordinates of the solar system body change? The very fact that the coordinates change means that this system is basically based on faraway stars, which are unchanging. Okay. So, if you use the time which is defined by sun's motion, that will make some complication in finding out stars, right? So then what time should you use?
Star time, sidereal time.
Okay. So how do you define a sidereal day, right? Star time is called sidereal time. So how do you define a sidereal day?
So when it is a distant star is overhead, same as we did for sun.
Correct. So if you take any star and you say, well, this star when it transits today and when it transits tomorrow, the difference between that is what I will call as a sidereal.
Sidereal day.
So that is a sidereal day. How? What is the relation between the sidereal day and a solar day?
Sidereal day is shorter by 4 minutes.
Why is it shorter by 4 minutes?
Earth motion because of.
So can somebody do that calculation quickly? Show that it is shorter than 4 minutes. You don't need to do the full calculation. You can just indicate what you will do. Okay. And do the calculation as an exercise. Well, how would you find out that it is shorter?
Whenever we had a 360-degree rotation, we had the 24 hours, means 24 into 60 minutes. So now we are having a 1 degree less approximately.
Why you are having 1 degree less?
Because the Earth's equinox has been shifted a bit from the sun's center and Earth's center. Not equinox, actually. Line of center has been tilted a bit.
That is not something. First of all, equinox is fixed. It is not moving anywhere. Okay, it's remaining where it is. Something is moving, and something is moving by roughly 1 degree. But what is that something?
It is the Earth which is moving around the sun. So it is moving like 365 days. So per day it is approximately 1 degree.
Correct.
Now the Earth is moving in such a way that the sidereal times become short of 4 minutes. Had it revolved in the other way, we would have 4 minutes.
So you have whatever you have said till now is correct. That there is a 1 degree difference every day. Okay. And so how much is 1 degree corresponding to? Now you have to tie that to 4 minutes.
So it's basically 1 by 360 into 24 into 60.
So 1440 divided by 360 is 4.
Correct. Okay, so you can do this calculation correctly. Actually, the difference is slightly more. We did a very rough calculation. The difference is 3 minutes 56 seconds. Okay, so that's what is written here. One sidereal day is smaller than solar day by 3 minutes and 56 seconds. Okay. Now, what is the consequence of that? The consequence of that is that your sidereal time and the solar time are not going to be synchronized, right? They will shift with respect to each other. So if you want to observe a particular star at its transit, that transit will happen every day at a different point of time, right? So that needs to be accounted for. And the way it is accounted for is by saying that by defining a coordinate called hour angle. Okay. And this hour angle, which is written here, this hour angle is related to the sidereal time. Okay. Now, as we defined, the sidereal time is nothing but a sidereal day divided by so many 24 hours. We need some zero for that, right? Now, the zero for that is simple to define because the right ascension zero, which is the first point of Aries, when it transits, you call that as the 0 hour of the sidereal time. Okay. Now, any star which is far away from this 0 hour transit, okay, it's very easy to figure out when it will transit. So, for example, a star at a right ascension of 8 hours, okay, means that if currently the first point of Aries is transiting, this star will transit 8 hours later, because the right ascension is simply linked with the sidereal time. So in other words, the sidereal time at a given place, say for example in Pune or at Delhi or Chennai, is basically the time, is basically the right ascension of the star which is transiting at any given point of time. That is the sidereal time. And if you know the right ascension of the star and you know the sidereal time, the difference between the two is called as hour angle, which can be negative or positive. And as the earth rotates, the hour angle is going to change. So we have implicitly put the time in the hour angle, and that is what goes in these coordinate transformations here to get the altitude and azimuth. Okay. So I hope I have explained the coordinate systems to some reasonable degree. Are there any questions before I move to something else?
Sir, Earth's tilt doesn't change this a bit after a few years.
That's a good point which you have raised. So we assume that the right ascension and the declination, that is the equatorial system, is a constant system. Okay, but as you pointed out, this is an assumption. So what is the variation? Can anyone say? And why is it there?
Elliptical path.
After certain, I'm getting that in 40,000 it has been changed from 22.1 degree to 24.5 degree. It is varying between those values.
What is varying between which values?
Earth tilt axis from 23.5 degrees is been set at present, but it has been varying from 22.1 to 24.5 degrees.
So why does it vary?
The rotation axis has been changed.
Because of the precession of Earth.
Right. So Earth is a rotating body, but just like a top, if you have played with a top, the axis of the top actually moves around, and that movement is called as precession. Okay. What's the time scale of precession?
24,000 years.
Right. So it's a very slow change in the axis, but because the axis is changing, your equatorial plane is shifting, and that will change your first point of Aries also. So your right ascension and declination will change as a function of time. Very small amount, few seconds of arc or few minutes of arc, but they will change. So if you want to be very accurate, which you want to be because there are thousands and millions of sources in the sky, then you will have to tell that your right ascension and declination has to be defined in some particular year. So International Astronomical Union has defined 2 years to define coordinate systems. The earlier one was defined as 1950. So those are called as B coordinates, or the 1950 equatorial or FK4 coordinate system. But from 1950 to today, 2020, almost 70 years have elapsed. And although this effect is very small, it does lead to a substantial shift in coordinates of the right ascension and declination coordinates. So in order to minimize that, the International Astronomical Union in 1990s decided a new year for defining RA and DEC, and that is the year 2000. Okay, and this is known as J coordinates. Okay, so there are these B and J coordinates which you will come across in astronomy in general and in radio astronomy in particular, and just remember they are there because of these small rotational problems which the Earth goes around. Okay, so precession is not the only effect. There is another effect called nutation, which also leads to this. It's much smaller than this entire thing. Okay. Any other questions?
Sir, do we assume that the rotation of faraway objects is negligible because we consider like fixed RA and DEC for those objects? So like, is it negligible?
It is negligible for all practical purposes, but the eventual coordinate system, the real coordinate system, if you want to have, which is completely unchanging, is defined in terms of what is known as quasars or quasi-stellar radio objects. Okay, I don't know whether you have had a lecture on extragalactic objects, but these are these are powerful galaxies which are at the edge of the universe. Okay, so they are the farthest objects which you can see, and so that system it defines coordinate systems, and that is known as a ICRF coordinate system. Okay, it's not of so much of great consequence as far as the astronomy, day-to-day astronomy is concerned. But yes, if you want to find out motions of objects, motions of galaxies and so on, which is known as proper motion, then you have to take this into account. So effectively, everything in the universe is moving. Okay, it's a question of relative scale of that. So if you look at sun, it is moving very fast. If you look at moon, sun and moon, for example, sun not so much, but moon certainly. If you look at moon today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you will really see it moving. Okay, sun to a lesser extent, and other planets to even lesser extent. But once you start going to stars in our galaxy, you already don't notice. They are almost like constants. Okay, and quasars are so far away objects that they are literally constants. But there are precision experiments where you need to consider a different coordinate system. Okay. So other than equatorial and horizon coordinate system, there is also a coordinate system called galactic coordinate system, which is based on the Milky Way galaxy. Again, the reference planes are the plane of the galaxy, because we know that Milky Way is a spiral galaxy. It's a planar galaxy. So the plane of the galaxy is the galactic latitude. And then again, the line joining sun and earth defines line joining sun and the center of galaxy defines a plane, which is the plane of reference for galactic longitude. Okay, so many times when you are defining galactic objects, you use the galactic coordinate system. So there are other coordinate systems also which are employed. It all depends on the context in which you want to use these coordinates. Okay, so if no further question, then I will probably continue a little bit more before we get into the pulsar part of it, which is what I was supposed to talk. Yeah.
So why do we bother like defining the time with respect to like the sun or these stars or something? Can't we like use like a atomic clock? It would be much more precise. And
excellent question. Okay, so so you are right that today we have atomic clocks which are very accurate. When the origin of time came, okay, almost 2 centuries back, when the sort of timekeeping started becoming more precise, the highest precision was in terms of the sun. Okay, and it was the astronomical objects which gave you very accurate time. So most of the last century, the timekeeping has been astronomical. We didn't have atomic clocks in those days. Okay. In fact, the quantum mechanics got discovered only in 1930s. So before 1930s, the concept of the atomic clock itself was not there. It's only when the quantum mechanics got discovered that you found atomic transitions, which could be actually defined very accurately in terms of wavelengths. And when you define the terms of wavelength to a large precision, you are able to convert it into time. Okay. So the best atomic clocks only came about in 50s and 60s. So it's around that time that the timekeeping went into atomic clocks and has remained in atomic clocks. So our time nowadays is not defined astronomically. Our current civil time is defined by atomic clocks, which used to be cesium clocks, which are 1 part in 13 accurate. Slowly from cesium, people have moved to iron fountain and iron trap clocks. And today you have experimental clocks, which are 1 part in 18 accurate. Okay. And no way the Earth's rotation or any other rotation is able to rival this kind of short-term stability. Okay. So today the time is on the atomic clock. But that leads to all kind of problems. For example, the Earth's rotation slows as a function of time. So if your watch is synchronized to an atomic clock, then slowly your day will start shifting with respect to the noon. And at some point of time, you may actually have midday in the night and so on. So what is done is that the atomic clocks are adjusted to match with the rotation of the Earth so that human beings can live the way they have lived all these years. Okay. So, but you are right that today the timekeeping is not done by astronomy, it is done by atomic clocks and will continue to be done by atomic clock in the near future.